Publishing your first book is so exciting, but it can also be really overwhelming. When I look back at my first release, there are so many things that I wish I had known before I hit publish. If you are a new or aspiring indie author, I hope that these lessons that I had to learn will help you make your author journey just a little bit easier. Hi, my name is Jennifer Gregson, and I am a young adult indie author who has 3 books out on the market, and I am currently writing my very first urban fantasy series set in New York, which is where I live. So I want to go through just a few of the things that I kind of wish I had known when I first started this indie author journey. And the first one is writing the book is just the first step. So I thought once I was done with that first draft that I was done. And that couldn't have been further from the truth. There was revisions, which I didn't really know how to self-revise my books. I had to take a course, which took a lot longer than I was expecting. Then I sent it to an editor, and that process took longer than I expected. Then I had to figure out how to get a book cover designer and work with that person and get a cover. Then I had to figure out how to format the book and how to, upload to all the bookstores. Because at the time I went wide. I was in, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Kobo, etc. And I had to figure out how to do all of that. And that took way longer than I was expecting. So my advice, if you're new and you're sort of just starting out on this journey, is to make sure you give yourself enough time for all of the sort of post-writing production steps, because I didn't, and I was quite surprised. And I actually had to push back when I thought I was going to publish my first book by about 6 months. So don't let those extra things sort of surprise you. And as I've talked about on here before, marketing is a long game. And I didn't realize it with my first book. I barely realized it with my second book. I am now really realizing that with my third book, that marketing is something that you do for the long term. The thing is that your book is out there for years, forever, for as long as it is up on Amazon, for as long as Amazon exists or any of the bookstores exist. Your book can keep finding readers, and that's like the pro, right? You have this beautiful book that people can read for years and years and years, and that's exciting, but the marketing can be a little overwhelming. And with me personally, that imposter syndrome always sort of creeps in when I start wanting to talk about my book or wanting to call myself an author, especially at the beginning. And so my advice to you is to sort of make sure you have a game plan. It is not going to be perfect. And the good thing is you're going to have years to perfect it. You are going to have years to try things. You are going to have years to play around with all kinds of marketing. And there's going to be new and exciting things happening that we don't even know of yet, right? Like TikTok sort of came on the scene, and no one had really heard about that. And it may be on its way out, and something else is going to take that void. We just don't know. So marketing really is a long game, but have a plan so that you can at least start. The third thing I wish I understood better or knew before I started this whole journey is that pricing your books is tricky. It is one of those things that you think you have a handle on, and then your second book comes and you're like, wait a minute. The game sort of changes every single time. And I definitely underpriced my book at the beginning. And I think my mindset was, well, if I make my book cheaper than the average price, more people will buy it. And that was exactly the opposite. What happens is people see that unless you're running a sale, right? Now that's different. So if you're saying, hey, my book is on sale for 99 cents for this week only, or this month, or for this flash sale, that's different. That's giving people like a value, right? But if you price your book way under what other ebooks are, what other paperbacks are, it's so weird, but people go, oh, that must not be valuable. Oh, that must not be very good. Oh, that must not be a high value, high production, professional book. And that is, probably not true, right? You put a lot of time and care into your book, but it's a really tricky thing. You don't want to be a lot higher than the average, and you don't want to be a lot lower than the average for normal. So my advice is to sort of take a look at your genre, take a look at both traditionally published and other indie published books, and see what the average is, and then use that to guide where you're most comfortable being. And I adjust the prices of my books a lot. So now that I've published a third book, I have adjusted my first book and my second book to be the same price. And to me, that makes sense. It may not make sense for you. It may be a different marketing strategy if you have a series, right? Like I'm thinking about pricing my first book a little cheaper to lead into the other books, but that's a strategy for you to think about. But if you're just doing your first book, I say use the market as a really good guide and don't try to go too far out of that sort of box. And the last thing that I wish I knew and understood better before I hit publish on my first novel was that you really can't do this all on your own. Yes, sitting in your room, sitting at a coffee shop, sitting at the library, sitting at your desk and writing is a very solo activity. But having friends that are also writers is huge. One, it just helps boost your confidence. It helps boost your mindset. It gives you someone to riff off of. It gives you someone to cheerlead for you and vice versa. But also just having that community of people to learn more things. You can only know so much. If you know X, Y, and Z, and your other indie author knows A, B, and C, and someone else knows D, E, F, right? If you all have your little skills and you all have the things that you're really, really good at, you can feed off of each other, you can learn from each other, you can help each other out, and it doesn't feel so lonely. And I really didn't have that when I first started. I am now slowly growing that right now. I have a really, really good sort of little group, and I'm trying to branch out to some new people and really try to get that community going for myself, because you really should not be an island. It really needs to be a community event, sort of. And the thing is, when you have indie author friends, they can read your book and they can tell other people, and then you can read their book, and it just really helps with word of mouth. But it's also just good to have people that understand where you're coming from, that understand why you're having a bad day, that understand why you feel the way you feel when you get a 3-star review or when someone buys your book, right? It just makes the journey so much easier. So if you're a published author, either indie or traditionally published, what is one thing that you wish you knew before you published your first book? I would love to know, so please leave it in the comments below. And if you are a newbie, if you are just starting out on this journey, what is one thing that you still have questions about? I would also love to know that down below so that I can make the right videos for you. I make new videos every Friday, so please hit the subscribe button. I will see you next week.